Hi friends, I'm Jeffy G, back with another episode. My guests in this episode are more than 20 virtual synths. I call these one-off synths because they're from different vendors. None of these came included in a bundle, so I'm excluding things like Komplete 14, or the Korg collection, or the Arturia Komplete collection, and just focusing on those one-off synths. And if you're like me, you get banner ads all the time for a free synth to download, and you tend to accumulate these over time. Most of them are free, some of them are low cost, as little as $10. But the real question is, how many do you need? In this video, I'm going to try and bring some perspective to that. All of the content in this video has links in the description, so if you're looking for a particular synth, you can find it there. I've also included chapters, so if you want to jump around to a particular synth, be my guest. I'm not sponsored by any of these vendors, so my opinions are, I think, objective. I keep track of all my virtual synths and plugins in a spreadsheet, because it can easily get out of hand. And at certain times of the year, I go through and purge the things that I'm not using. The first category we're going to take a look at are those that I would consider kind of the must-haves. They're the ones I've had the longest, and you'll find that I'm not the only one recommending them. They're all free, and they're worth taking a look at. The first one I'd have to draw your attention to is Vital. And you've probably heard of this one. It's very powerful. A lot of people compare it to Serum. It is different. It's not the same as Serum, but most importantly, it's free. It's made up of 3 oscillators and a noise generator. It has 2 filters down at the bottom, and off to the right you've got 3 envelopes, 6 LFOs, effects, the ability to control voices. It's just a highly capable, excellent synthesizer. Now, if you go into the browser of the presets, you're going to see that there are just a lot of presets. Hundreds of presets with the standard install, and then you can get third-party presets from several sources that are free. You can favorite presets. And you'll see they're organized into styles. You've got leads, basses, keys, percussion. There's really nothing this synth can't do. Each oscillator can be made up of standard wavetables or a long list of wavetables that you can import and adjust. Then you've got an assortment of effects, everything from compression to distortion and filters, reverb. There is a mod matrix where you can assign those LFOs to do certain things. And then there's an advanced tab here. But it's fair to say that with the variety of presets that are available in Vital, there's so much there to inspire you and meet your requirements. The next must-have I would recommend is Dext. And this is an FM synthesis modeled after the Yamaha DX7. It's been around a long time. It was actually the first virtual synth I got. And one of the beauties of this thing is that if you want those DX7 sounds, they're all there and more. If you click on Cart here, you can download this file of all the hundreds of carts available. Now, a DX7 came with cartridges, and it only held 32 presets at a time. So down here in the bottom, you've got currently loaded cartridge, and you can drag any of these into that cartridge and make up custom cartridges of hundreds of the sounds that have been programmed for the DX7. The trick is to download this DX7 all the web sysx file. And of course, the factory presets are there. So these sounds are everything you've heard in the 80s. I use these all the time. You can program the DX7. In fact, it's easier to program here than it is on an actual DX7 with its film-type buttons. But I'm not into programming FM synthesis. I just wanted the sounds, and Dext is the fastest way to get them, and it's free. Surge XT is another one I would recommend. It's a slightly different layout. It looks like a traditional hardware synth where you've got all these slides and dials on it. Here at the bottom you've got macros that you can assign, and you can see those macros assigned to everything from velocity to pitch bend. The realm of presets really quite extensive. You can see as I go through, there's just hundreds of presets to choose from. It is a traditional subtractive oscillator synth. Even if you don't program a synth, what you're going to find with XT Surge is that the preset list is so extensive. There's things that you can use in there, and you're going to like it. Another free, simple synthesizer that a lot of people recommend for just learning synthesis is the TAL Noisemaker Synth. It's a very simple setup. You've got 2 oscillators, master controls, 2 LFOs, a filter, and an amp. And it's capable of doing some amazing things. But it's highly recommended for people that are learning how to program a synth. Here's a deep bass sound. Presets are organized by the same way we've seen. You've got effects, keyboard leads, pads, a really extensive list of presets. You may find that you don't have to program this synth at all. You can see that those oscillators only offer some simple wave patterns, but there is the ability to add in FM synthesis on oscillator 2, and all the controls are there. If you're taking the journey to learn how to do basic synthesis, TAL Noisemaker Synth is a good place to start, and it's free. Another free must-have in my library is Odin 2. I've always liked some of the presets in this. Now it's organized a little bit different. It's similar to Vital and some of the other synths in that you have 3 oscillator slots. Here you've got a multi-oscillator, analog oscillator, but you can choose from analog, wavetable, vector, chip tune oscillator, FM oscillator, phase mod, and noise. And in each case, you can choose the wave patterns and the basic controls for each type of oscillator. Then you can add these other things. There's an amplifier in the middle. There's ADSR controls over to the left here for both an envelope and the amplifier. And you've got a variety of effects over here to the right, delay, phaser, chorus, and you can organize those effects in any way you want. Now the layout's a little bit different. Down here at the bottom, there's a preset library. The presets are organized into different groups here. Even drums. It has an arpeggiator, so you can create patterns or save and open patterns, and there's a mod matrix for assigning LFOs. Well, I've just found that Odin 2 had a slightly different sound than the other ones that we've looked at so far, so it's on my must-have list. Now, beyond the must-have synths, and they're all free, are what I would call some experimental sounds. First one is Iris 2 by Isotope, and unfortunately you can't buy this anymore. You might be able to buy it, but it's not supported by Isotope. And what was so interesting about this synth is that it's a granular synth. As you can see, you can highlight grains of a sample that you want to include, and you can do layering and modulation and a lot of features. But what I like most about it is just such a great set of presets here. Some strange sounds, things that you might not find in those other synths. Always been interested in Iris 2. I think it sounds great, very capable, different take on the way you do synthesis with this granular approach, combining oscillators and samples, but still very good. Another synth in that category of experimental would be Pendulate by Newfangled Audio. Take a look at some of the leads in here. You'll be quite impressed. Simple things from plucks to rhythmic patterns. I've always been thrilled with some of the synths that come from Yuhi. They have some great quality stuff, But one of the ones that I find most interesting is the Hans Zimmer collection for Zebra 2. It's just an amazing set of presets. If you're a fan of Hans Zimmer and you're familiar with those soundtracks, you're going to like the way this one works. Now this is a complex synth. Like the other ones that we've seen, it has multiple oscillators here on the left. Everything on the left generates sound. You can have multiple oscillators, noise, VCFs. And in the middle here is a really interesting approach to the way you route those sounds. Some of these are very complex routing, but you can essentially have 4 streams, and those streams can feed into envelopes and LFOs. Down here at the bottom, you've got global controls, each oscillator's wavetable. See, there's 4 potentially. There's the FM-based sound sources, M segs. There's something new and something to be learned. There's an XY pad, an arpeggiator. All the controls are very complex down here at the bottom, but it makes for some amazing sounds. Now, Zebra comes in several flavors. The Hans Zimmer collection is often called Dark Zebra. You can buy it as one package. It's not free, but you can get the Zebra Legacy collection, which is all of the presets, which there are thousands for both the Dark Zebra and the original Zebra. And you'll also get a discount when they come out with Zebra 3. Another type of synthesizer that's been popular are clones of Oberhiem, which were popular in the 70s and 80s and 90s. The OBXD is probably one of the simplest. It's free, it has a bunch of presets, and it sounds pretty good. A lot of people that are familiar with the hardware version of Oberhiem synths like this layout where you can tweak the oscillators. There's a mixer, filter, envelopes, amplifiers, modulation, things that you're familiar with. Well, here's the list of presets. There's a classic fifths pulsar sound. But let me show you something interesting. Brainworks delivers an Oberhausen clone synth. It looks like this: general, portamento, 2 oscillators. Down at the bottom, you've got 2 envelopes and an LFO. Some of these other buttons like transpose, number of voices, you'll find them on any synth. But then Cherry Audio came out with a synth, and they call it the Synthesizer Expander Module. I believe it's free, but these two things look very similar, don't they? The layout, the color. Now they have different presets. I've been through this a bit, looking at the presets and thinking, are these identical? Not really. Different presets, but almost identical synthesizers. Presets over here are organized slightly different. So I guess the question would be, do you need both? Sometimes I'm doing a remake of an 80s song, and I was after the synth sounds specifically that were used in a Robert Palmer song, and I couldn't figure out what it was. It turned out it's the PPG Wave, and you can get this for a fairly low price, and it comes in different forms. The Wave 2.2V is free. It has a fairly limited number of presets. Then Waldorf, which is the company that distributes PPG Wave as a VST, has a paid-for version with more presets. Fairly difficult to use because they've tried to be true to the original, and the print is pretty small. And their most current and flagship product is the PPG Wave 3.V. Now, if you take my advice about the quality of synths from Yuhi, you might look at the ones they have for free. One of the first ones I started using is called Triple Cheese. And originally I thought this would be cheesy sounds, but they aren't. They're actually great sounds. It's a fairly simple version of a Yuhi synth. It's got 3 oscillators, some global controls, a VCA, and some effects, but it's not as extensive as their flagship synth, which is Diva. And that one costs money. Triple Cheese is free. A popular one is this Tyrell synth. And you can see in this case, it has fewer oscillators and a very simple setup. All the controls are right in front of you, but still an extensive list of presets. Now I might use some of these presets just as a starting point and then add effects and some of the capabilities of my DAW to fatten that up or change the sound. But if you're into hip hop or EDM, some of these sounds might be all that you need. And Tyrell is free, Triple Cheese is free. Let's look at the last one from Yuhi. It's called Zebralette. And what this is, very much like Zebra, which costs money, this is free, but it's just one oscillator unit. Zebra is made up of multiple oscillator units, but you can learn how an individual unit works here just by playing with this very simple synthesizer, going through some of the presets that are in here and understanding how they're programmed and how they're set up. A somewhat surprising source of synthesizers is Universal Audio, who are better known for their plugins and audio interfaces, but they do deliver three interesting synthesizers: the Polymax, Opal, and a mini-moog. I got Polymax for free with a purchase at Plugin Boutique. It was a special offer for a limited time. Then subsequently, I saw Opal and the mini-moog were on sale as a package for all three for $49. But I have seen these synths for sale for as little as $10 each, even though the list price on each one is closer to $200. They describe the Polymax as a warm, classic analog synth that combines some modern features. It's reminiscent of the Jupiter, Oberhiem, and some of the classic synths. It's a 2-oscillator synth with an extensive filter, LFO, some output staging, easy access to control the modulation wheels, an arpeggiator, delay, spring reverb, and hall. But it does come with an extensive list of presets. Well, the thing I like about Polymax is that the layout is very easy to understand. You don't have to do a lot of menu diving. All the controls are easy to manipulate. It's got big knobs for things like the filter cutoff and envelope control, which are the things you're going to use on an analog synth. Now, Opal is what they describe as a morphing synth with endless filters. You can see here it has 3 oscillators plus noise. These sounds have been designed for morphing, for activity, for motion, for change. So it has analog capabilities, but it also takes advantage of a wavetable, forms you can choose. There are several filters and the ability to apply the ADSR for the filter envelope in some creative ways. There's a mixer in the middle that allows you to mix between the different sound sources and noise. Let's take a look at some of the presets. All of these synths have a best of category. You get a good sense of the motion that's available from those filters. last of the three from UAD is the Moog mini-moog, and it's a very accurate representation of the actual hardware. It's simple, but it's effective. It includes all the same dials and switches. So if you used one of these as a hardware device, moving to the virtual instrument is going to be easy for you. It's got your controllers, the oscillator banks, which are all manual, not digital. You've got a mixer, and then modifiers organized by filter, loudness, contour, and then the overall amp volume. Down at the bottom, you've got controls for the bend range of the pitch modulation amount, an LFO, key mode, input, and velocity. It does deliver that authentic analog mini-moog sound. Then there are some synths that are hard to say no to. Kinephonium. I'm going to just call it Kinephonium. Practice saying that. This is actually that are handmade, and they cost more than $15,000, but the VST version of it you can buy through Plugin Alliance for under $100. They've tried to mimic those tube sounds. It's got all the dials and knobs of the original hardware, plus at the top here you can see you have effects pedals. Because it's so unique, having access to the synthesizer as a virtual instrument is huge. And it sounds great. Now, during the 90s, there were romplers. And a rompler were recorded sounds that you could browse from different synthesis methods. Nowadays, the Synthmaster player does virtually the same thing from KV Audio. So initially, when you open the browser here, you've got all kinds of options. Leads. But these are all really just recorded sounds. They're not samples, they're synthesized sounds for the most. The Synthmaster player is just that. It's just a player. You have limited ability to change the sound other than adjust the layers and the effects. And they're off to the right here. Another very simple and popular subtractive synth is Bliss Monolith. And it's free. It has some great presets. One of the nice things about this particular synth is that it runs both on your Mac, Windows, or on iOS. This is another good synth for just learning how a synth works, but a slightly different layout. Much like Vital, by having these bigger graphics, it's a little bit easier to learn and see what you're doing when you're clicking on different things. Easier to learn how to set up LFOs, easier to control the envelope. All of these things are a little bit more intuitive. Now, another synthesizer that just came out is from Behringer. It's their first virtual synth. It's called Vintage. And to be quite honest, I'm not that impressed with it, but it was free. So it falls into that category of, do I download it? Do I try it out? Sure. I just couldn't find anything particularly redeeming other than this long list of presets. But are any of these sounds unique or good quality? I'd say no. Something similar to the Behringer, but a lot better, is the GeForce Access Synth. And this appeals to somebody who's familiar with the hardware layout where you've got all the slides and dials available to you, just like they were in the hardware. It sounds pretty good. It's got a pretty good set of presets. What I hear in there is a wide range of sounds, from early analog synths to FM and 80s styles patches that are great if you're in a retro band, or even if you're doing EDM and hip hop, but you want to inject some of that 80s disco sounds. I think this is a great synth for doing just that. And since it's free, it's one of those, might as well get it and try it out. Now, beyond analog synths and wavetable and FM, there's another trend going on, which is physical modeling synths. Tele is a fairly new synth that falls into that marketplace. If you have Logic, you've already seen this in Sculpture, and it has some interesting realistic sounds. They're organic and they relate to real instruments. Tele has taken it kind of a different step here. You can see that the synth is laid out with a series of graphics and hieroglyphics that make it a little bit different to learn and to use. Now, it does have presets. Of course, all of the parameters for controlling the synth are on the right, and the high-level menus are on the left here. And it is granular based, where you can control the density of and how the grains are executed, the shapes, the tone, all of these parameters. It takes something to learn, but I think it's very interesting. Now, I'm not going to go too far into this. I did a full review of Tele. There's a link to it up above and in the description. And maybe in another video, we'll do a deeper dive into what the physical modeling world is all about. Now, hopefully you've found this video useful, and maybe in your activities you can differentiate a good one versus a bad one, and how many synths do you really need. And remember, I haven't looked at any samplers. There's a whole world of samplers and multi-samplers with a growing popularity. If you like what you saw in this video, click on the like button. Consider subscribing to the channel. It helps support me. I appreciate any comments and feedback that you want to offer.